There are things in this world that carry more than their weight. A photograph, a letter, a ring, a tiara. Not because of the diamonds or the history, or the careful craftsmanship of whoever made it, but because of the person who wore it. Because of what wearing it meant, what it said about her, who she was in the moments. She had it on her head. Diana wore that tiara, and when the possibility arose, at a glittering royal evening, at Windsor Castle, in a room full of the monarchy's most senior figures, that Camilla might wear it too, Prince William intervened, calmly, quietly, with the kind of controlled precision that those who know him have come to recognize as the most powerful expression of everything he feels. The room fell silent, and Camilla, usually so composed, so managed, so practiced at navigating the impossible emotional landscape of being the woman who replaced Diana, I could not hide what she felt. This is what happened that night, and why it matters more than a tiara has any right to matter. Let me take you into the room. A royal evening at Windsor Castle, glittering in the way that only Windsor can be glittering, with the particular weight of centuries. In every stone, every portrait, every carefully placed object, that tells the story of a family, and an institution and a nation, all at once. The guests were the inner circle, senior royal figures, trusted aides, the people who exist in the space, where the family and the institution overlap, who have seen enough of both to understand the difference between the performance and the reality. It was meant to be an elegant evening, the kind that reinforces, visually and symbolically, the image of a monarchy that has found its equilibrium, that has moved past its most difficult chapter, that has minus in the careful language of palace management healed. And then someone reached for a tiara. I need you to understand something about tiaras in the royal family. Before I tell you what happened, they are not accessories, not in the way that the word accessory implies something decorative, interchangeable, a finishing touch chosen for aesthetic defect and set aside when the evening ends. Royal tiaras carry history. They carry the identity of the women who wore them. They carry the associations that form in the public consciousness and in the family's private memory around specific pieces at specific moments. They carry the weight of who you are when you wear them. Diana wore certain pieces at certain moments in her royal life that became inseparable from her image, from who she was, from the extraordinary, complicated, deeply human story of a woman who walked into the most watched institution in the world at 19 years old, and became, against every institutional effort to contain her, something the world would never stop loving. The tiara at the center of the story carries Diana in exactly that way, not just in the diamonds or the craftsmanship, in the images, the photographs, the specific, irreplaceable associations that millions of people carry of Diana wearing it. And when the possibility arose that Camilla might put it on, the person in that room who felt that possibility most viscerally was her son. Those present describe what William did with a consistency that paints a very clear picture. He did not shout. He did not make a scene. He did not perform outrage for the room. He spoke, calmly, directly, with just a few carefully chosen words, that in the particular language of royal understatement, said everything that needed to be said. Sources are careful about repeating the exact words, but the essence of what William communicated was this: that tiara is not available, not now, not for this evening, not for any evening. That some pieces of Diana's legacy, the specific, tangible, physically present reminders of who she was and what she meant, are not open for negotiation, not for convenience, not for the sake of an elegant appearance at a royal gathering, not for anyone. The intervention was directed at the situation, at whoever was facilitating the access to the piece as much as at Camilla herself. It was institutional, formal, final, but it was also minus, in a room that understood perfectly what was happening, deeply personal. The room fell silent in the way that rooms fall silent when something has been said that cannot be unsaid, when a line has been drawn that everyone present will remember. Sources describe Camilla's response as one of the most humanly revealing moments in her recent royal experience. The composure slept, not dramatically, not in the way that would generate footage or headlines, or the immediate, manageable crisis of a very visible emotional response. But in the small, specific, telling ways, that composure always slips. When something lands in the place that all the management and rehabilitation and careful positioning cannot quite protect. Witnesses noticed her stepping away from the main gathering, a quiet withdrawal, the kind that those around her would have recognized, though they would not have commented on it, as something more than a brief break from the formality of the evening. Senior palace staff moved toward her. Not dramatically. The quiet, professional movement of people whose job it is to ensure that what happens inside these walls stays inside these walls, and the reason for their movement, the reason for her withdrawal, for the stillness that had settled over that part of the room, was not complicated. Camilla had just been told, in a room full of the people who matter most, inside the institution she had spent 30 years fighting to belong to, that there is a limit, a specific, tiara-shaped, Diana-defined limit, to how far she belongs. I want to step back for a moment from the immediate drama of the evening, because the tiara is not really about a tiara. The tiara is the occasion for something that has been building for years. The question that this moment forces into the open is one that the palace has always wanted to manage quietly. How much of Diana's physical legacy belongs to the institution, and how much belongs to her sons? Diana's personal effects, her jewelry, the specific pieces that carry her image, and her memory in the most immediate, the tangible way. The palace would say, has always said, that these things are royal assets, part of the broader collection, available for the appropriate use, by the appropriate people, at the appropriate moments. William would say something different. William would say, and apparently did say, in a room full of the institution's most senior figures, in terms that nobody present was able to misunderstand, that some things are not assets, some things are his mother's, and no amount of time or rehabilitation or institutional convenience will make them otherwise. The tiara incident, as those close to the palace are already calling it, is not the end of something. It is another chapter in the story that Northwire has been following for months. The portrait, the estate, the decree, the confrontation, the ultimatum, the Balmoral exclusion, the banquet removal, every one a statement, every one a line drawn, every one a message sent, to Camilla, to the institution, to the people who have spent years managing Diana's memory on their own terms, that the management is over, that William is deciding now what Diana's legacy looks like, what it includes, what it protects, what it does not share. The tiara is perhaps the most personal of all these statements, because it is not about power, not about position or title or decree. It is about a piece of jewelry that carries his mother's face, and William, who has spent his entire adult life finding ways to carry her, is not going to let anyone else decide what happens to the things she left behind. Diana wore that tiara in rooms like the one at Windsor that evening, in photographs that millions of people have looked at and felt something that they cannot quite explain. The particular feeling of looking at someone who is genuinely, completely, uncontainably alive. She is gone. The tiara remains, and in its remaining in the specific, physical, impossible to deny presence of the thing she wore and used and carried, she remains too, not metaphorically, in the weight of the object itself, in the image it carries, in the room that went silent when the possibility arose that it might be worn by someone else. William does not speak often about Diana. He does not give interviews about his grief or his mission, or the specific ways in which he has spent 27 years deciding how to honor her. He acts a portrait on a wall, an estate bearing his name, a decree with 3 signatures, a private confrontation, a public snub, an ultimatum, a Balmoral exclusion, a banquet removal, a room falling silent, and in all of it, the same message, delivered in the same quiet, controlled, impossible to ignore way. She was here. She matters. And nothing, not time, not rehabilitation, not the crown itself, will change that. Drop a comment. Which piece of Diana's legacy do you think William protects most fiercely? I want to know what you think. New video tomorrow. Same time. See you tomorrow.